Hi guys, welcome to a new video. So today I thought I would get on to the next series on my channel, which I have decided that the next series is going to be the oppositions between each zodiac sign in astrology that is in opposition to each other. So that would be the Aries Libra, the Taurus Scorpio, the Gemini Sagittarius, the Cancer Capricorn, the Leo Aquarius, and the Virgo Pisces oppositions. So I thought obviously I would go in the logical order today with this first video of this new series and start with the first opposition that comes in the zodiac. And that would be obviously the Aries and Libra opposition. Now I did touch on this in the Libra detailed description video of their character traits and compare them to the Aries. But yeah, basically. Now, the thing that they have in common is that obviously they are both cardinal mode, and all these oppositions are the same mode and compatible elements. That's a thing with all these oppositions, actually. That's just how astrology works. But Aries and Libra, the thing they have in common, both of those signs have in common, is that they are both cardinal signs. They are both reactive. Aries more action orientated, reactive sort of thing, and Libra more intellectually reactive. They're wanting to start logical trains of thought in their minds and start logical intellectual conversations with other people as well. Aries, they're like that for action in a physical sense and sort of new innovative ideas, pioneering ideas. That's the Aries sort of way of channeling it. So they're both cardinal, so they both like are initiators, leaders in a sense, active pioneering spirit. They're both action signs in their own way. Basically, though, Aries, these are very, very personal signs, both of them, and Aries represents the self modality, and Libra represents the other modality. So, if I don't know if modality is the right word, but similar to what I did in the Aquarius explanation video, compared them to Leo, I said that it's kind of like Leo's the self in a group, and then Aquarius is the others in the group. But I feel like Aries and Libra, especially relevant to those two opposition for this video, they are especially like this. They are very. It's almost in a one-on-one sense, whereas Leo and Aquarius, their oppositions more in a group sense. So, in a sense of a one-on-one thing, Aries is me. It's the me sort of self aspect, and then the Libra is the other aspect. Like their ego is broken down, they're more sort of given toward the other person. They're fair-minded. They are justice though, so they won't just give and not get anything. They won't allow that to happen. But they are very other orientated, and Aries is very self orientated. So you kind of also, Aries rules the first house, which is in astrology the house of the physical body. It's the house of the ascendant or rising sign. It's the physical appearance, the most basic of personality traits that the person has, is represented by what sign is in their first house in astrology. And Aries is the sign which is similar to the energy of the first house because they are the first sign and that's what they represent. So it's about self, it's about physical appearance, it's the most basic personality traits of a person. Libra is traditionally the seventh house representative, which is about marriage, partnerships of all kinds, serious sort of relational matters with another person. Obviously, romantically would be the most obvious sort of way to take that. But it's not necessarily romantic, it's just partnerships in general that are serious. So it could be business partnerships, um, friends and acquaintances, although that's more the 11th house. It's more like the 7th house is very serious one on one relationship and commitment, those sort of things is what it symbolizes. But of course, at its core, it will most symbolize like a marriage and partnership and union in that sense and the serious sort of fair-minded give and take sort of thing that happens with a partnership is what that indicates. So that's kind of the seventh house astrology themes, and that's what Libra represents. So the core really of the opposition is this: do I do a certain thing for my self-interest and to keep my ego high and support my progress in life, the path, the direction that I want to go down, or do I want to um, choose the option which is going to benefit the group more? Like, do I want to, or more like a one-on-one relationship sort of thing? Because Libra is more one-on-one versus Aquarius is more the whole group mentality. So it's almost like Aries is the aspect in the relationship of what's going to be the best option or the best choice for my self improvement, what's going to take me the next step in my life, what's going to boost my social status. They will do their decision making and their coordinating sort of mode as to what's going to serve their self interest. And Libra, they will do that in the sense of what's going to serve the interest of the other in the relationship, what's going to serve the other person. So it's almost like Aries represents the sort of selfish, stand for yourself sort of image, and Libra represents the selfless sort of I'll almost kind of sacrifice my own sort of needs and desires in life in order to accommodate the other person more and be more there for them and provide for them in a sense. That's kind of the core of their opposition, but obviously Aries embodies probably the best qualities of the selfish take on things, and Libra the best qualities of the selfless take on things. But they are also both kind of in their own way selfish because they're both sort of cardinal signs. So cardinal is a very personal mode of expression of the element. It's creating this element, but cardinal mode it's geared a lot more towards themselves. So cardinal can be selfish no matter what sign it's in because it is the mode which is creating this energy, and it is quite for itself because it's like it's creating this energy. They're all in their own way pioneers because they're creating the energy of each element. They're the one who's coordinating that actively, having to do so. So they all have this kind of pioneering sort of spirit. So it can be quite a self-serving sort of mode of expression of the element, no matter what element it happens to be in terms of what sign. But Libra, because mainly because the sun is fallen, they do have this sort of self-sacrificing spirit, but they are also fair-minded, so they do also know, and Libra can be quite serious as well. Saturn is exalted, so Libra does have this sort of, they're very aware if they're given more than they're getting, and they don't like that. They might not say for a while because they don't like confrontation, but they are very aware of if that is occurring, that they are having their kindness taken advantage of in an intimate relationship. Eventually, they will probably get over their fear of criticism and stand up for themselves and express that because that is something they are quite serious about, fair give and take, because they are about justice and balance. They will not tolerate to have their scales tipped, more one way than the other. Like top heavy scales where one side is like weighed down and the other side's not as balanced, that cannot do for Libra. Libra needs everything to be perfectly balanced on both sides of their metaphorical scales, if you like. Everything needs to be balanced. So eventually they will probably get rid of a relationship that isn't balanced because they're very aware of this balance of sort of mutual respect on both sides in an intimate relationship, and they are both very aware of this sort of are you giving more than you're getting from me? In which case they're going to provide more, or are they not getting as much as they're given to you, in which case they're going to provide less? That's kind of the Libra thing. Um, so whilst they're self-sacrificing, they're not as much as a Pisces in the sense that they're going to let everyone walk all over them. They won't see the red flags that tell them that their kindness is being taken for granted and that someone's possibly using them. They just choose to be delusional and ignore all those red flags. That's what Pisces would do. Libra is not selfless in that sense. They are quite self-aware in the sense that they are very aware that they are perhaps when their kindness is being taken advantage of purposefully by someone else, they are very aware of it. They're not delusional about that like Pisces can be. They are very aware of it and they do not like it because they do have a very serious side to them. Whereas Pisces is so optimistic that they're a bit delusional. Libra doesn't have that. Libra is very less emotional, more analytical and logical minded because they are air, cardinal air sign. But they don't have this optimism of Pisces from Jupiter because they're exalting Saturn and their main ruler is Venus. So they're in love with good things, but they're not so optimistic, but at least it makes them less delusional and it makes them clearer minded. They don't have the Neptunian fog or mist over their eyes because they're ruled by Venus. So they are very aware of value because Venus is value in every sense of the word. So and because they're exalting Saturn, they have this very serious side to them. So they are very aware of if their kindness is being taken for granted, eventually they probably will speak up and say something. But how long that takes is just how long it takes them to get over their fear of confrontation that they have in the meantime. Um, but yeah, the core of the opposition is that Aries is the self. They are, I will do what I want to do. This is my path in life I want to go down. And Libra's like, I want to do this, but they're also indecisive as well because they're like, I want to do this for myself, but I want to go this other route for my partner or the other in my life, my other half. So that is basically the core of their opposition. Like they are opposite in the sense that everything in life has to be self-serving, if you like, for Aries in a certain sense. I'm not saying that they're selfish about literally everything and they won't ever accommodate anyone else's point of view, because of course that is not true. But they are also the child of the zodiac. They have this naivety. They are quite ungrounded in a certain sense, and they're not serious. Aries does not have the sense of seriousness, because also Saturn has an interesting dynamic with this opposition, because Libra's side of the opposition is where Saturn's exalted, in other words, strengthened, and then the Aries side of the opposition, Saturn's fallen, in other words, dead. So when Saturn is in Aries, it works at a very, very poor level. It's really not happy at all there. It hates being placed in Aries. And conversely, it loves being placed in Libra because it's exalted in that sign. So Libra, as I say, it has this very serious sort of tone to it at the core of its personality, and Aries has a lack of seriousness and responsibility in the core of their personality. Libras are also very sort of mature in that sense because of this Libra influence. But then they also, obviously, because they're ruled by Venus, they do have this flirty sort of manner about them, especially because it's the air side of Venus too. Um, but deep down in their core, they have this very serious side because they do have this Saturn strengthened, and Aries does not have that. They have Saturn weakened. So they're more about they will ignore the consequences of their actions because they just want to do what's best for them, not necessarily always a bad thing. And they have a lot of energy and courage and optimism from Mars, which they use in the direction to better themselves in their life and get a high social status for themselves. um, Libra, they have a lack of energy because they're more sort of toward the other person in the relationship, and they are a lot more serious. So I could see possible problems with Aries and Libra. Now, in astrology, opposites can either attract and you love each other forever, or pull away when you don't even know the person, you just don't like them, but you don't know why. Or, like what most commonly happens to me, is that you are attracted to them very strongly when you first meet them for the first time, and you're drawn to talk to them, you're drawn to communicate with them and get to know them. But then after a while, you guys sort of notice your personality traits a lot more and your character traits, and then you start to pull away from each other. And that time period is undefined. It could be whatever length of time, but eventually kind of give up because it's a very serious sort of, you need to work really hard on this relationship to keep it going if it is a relationship between opposite signs, especially if it's your sun or moon that's opposite. Yeah, as opposed to just like rising or something, it's not such a deep, serious matter. But moon and sun, especially moon, actually, because that is the deeper, instinctive emotions and reactions of a person. It's very, and sun, because that's where your ego's tied up. But those two being opposite in a relationship is going to be hard. So you're going to have to work quite hard at keeping it going and keeping it a positive, healthy relationship that's non toxic and all of that. But I could see possible problems with Aries and Libra if they have got together romantically, for example, is that Aries is going to be very tied in with this sort of let's do new things all the time, new experiences. They're also going to be about themselves. They're going to want to do what's going to benefit them the most. They're going to have this optimism, lack of seriousness from Saturn, lack of awareness of time being used wisely. And then Libra is going to look at Aries and they're going to think they're not serious enough, they're too childish, and they're too sort of not self-sacrificing enough. They're too much of a taker and Libra's too much of a giver. Aries is going to look at Libra like, why are they so serious all the time? Why are they so static? They have all this air, but they never use it because they're always worried too much about the other person's feelings and thoughts, and that's occupying too much of their time. They're not going for themselves because they're too busy thinking about me. When I'm okay, I can be independent and self-reliant all the time, and I expect them to be that way too. Why can they not be that way? That's how Aries is going to view the Libra. But the Libra is going to view the Aries as like, well, why are they so self-centered? Why are they so much about themselves? They should be providing for my wants and needs because I'm providing for their wants and needs. So if you kind of understand, I'm trying to explain it in a way that's quite basic and simplified. That's kind of the whole core. Like I feel like Libra will view Aries as too selfish and for themselves and not really serious or mature enough. And then the Aries will view the Libra as just too serious, too boring, too lazy. They're not using that air energy wisely, and it's also the air is going to blow the air as its flames, so it's going to make them stronger. So in the case of like Aries pairing with a Gemini or an Aquarius, that air is going to work well. It's going to be harmonious. It's going to strengthen the flames of Aries' fire, and it's going to make it burn stronger. So that will manifest as excitement, generally speaking, obviously not always, but that should manifest as excitement in the relationship with them. But when the air sign blowing the Aries flames is of the Libra air variety, that's when it becomes a problem, because they are also in this opposition to each other. So in that case, it's going to blow the Aries flames in a more negative direction. It's going to make them constantly irritated, high strung, frustrated toward the Libra. And then the Libra, because they also hate confrontation, their scales are going to be unbalanced. So they're going to be constantly stressed out in this relationship. They're going to be like, oh my God, it's not working. They're feeling off balance. They're feeling nervous all the time. They're feeling attacked almost. And then the air is going to be blowing, and then it's going to blow Aries, and the Aries will constantly be irritated. They're constantly going to be arguing with the Libra. It's not going to work out well. However, I will say that oppositions, they're either horrendous or they are perfect match made in heaven style of relationship, and it's very unpredictable when you're getting together with your opposite in astrology. So it could be terrible, like I said, but it could also be perfect. It could complement each other perfectly. They could be soulmates for each other. So it is both sides of the equation as possible. I'm not saying it's always a disaster, because it can be perfect, because exactly what side of the personality is missing in Aries, Libra makes up for, and exactly what side of the personality is missing in Libra, Aries makes up for. I do think it could work really, really well, possibly, but it could also possibly work disastrously as well. Libra can learn from Aries to be more energetic, more decisive, take more of a direction in their life rather than being so indecisive and weighing up all the pros and cons of a situation. They can learn from Aries to be more determined, more energetic, more direct and decisive, more assertive, more self-confident. But Libra can tame the Aries to an extent. They can make them more fair-minded, more diplomatic, more sort of thinking about the other person, um, less impulsive with their energy, because they have so much energy that they use it for impulsive things too often. So Libra can make the Aries a bit more like softer, consider what they're doing more before they release all the energy toward it. Like, think of the consequences of their actions a bit more, because another thing in the opposition is that Aries never really thinks enough before they do something. They just jump in and do it anyway. And Libra's the opposite. They think too much before they do something, and it makes them really indecisive. So another thing they could learn from each other to balance each other out is that the Aries could teach the Libra to just do something quicker, like not think so much before they do something, and then they can teach correspondingly. They can teach the Aries to think more before they do something and stop being so impulsive with the great energy that they have available to them. And Venus and Mars, they are the celestial lovers in astrology as well. They both represent love in different ways. Mars is the masculine sense, and then Venus is the feminine sense of love. So they are celestial lovers as well. They're meant to be together. So it could be a match made in heaven, or it could be disastrous. But yeah, I hope that's explained their opposition, the core of their opposition, in a way that was, basic and easy to understand and simplified. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.